All right. Nicholas, you're most welcome to come up here. Take the hot seat. Yeah. We're delighted to be joined by Nicholas Nicholas Koumjian, the head of the Independent Investigative Mechanism for Myanmar. He was here to brief you on the situation in Myanmar. If you want, that glass of water is also for you. Go ahead, please.
I'm here in New York because Tuesday I presented our annual report, the annual report of the Independent Investigative Mechanism for Myanmar, to the Third Committee of the General Assembly. Also presenting reports were the Special Rapporteur for Human Rights and the Special Envoy for Myanmar, the Secretary General's Special Envoy. What we reported, same as the others, is that the situation in Myanmar, unfortunately, is only getting worse. The intensity, the frequency, and the severity of war crimes being committed in the country is increasing. Our mechanism was established by the Human Rights Council and endorsed by the General Assembly with the mandate to collect evidence of the most serious international crimes committed in Myanmar, to preserve and analyze that evidence in order to facilitate criminal prosecutions in national or international courts. We have been doing that, and we were created largely in response to the crisis in 2017 when Rohingya were forced over the border to Bangladesh, more than 750,000 Rohingya. And at that time, that was what was not envisioned was the military coup in February 2021. So since that time, the scope of crimes that we have to investigate has greatly expanded, while unfortunately our resources have not kept up. We're sharing evidence about the Rohingya situation with several ongoing processes, including an investigation by the federal court in Buenos Aires, Argentina, also with the International Criminal Court, which is investigating because the Rohingya were forced over the border onto the territory of a member state of the ICC, Bangladesh, and that could constitute the crime of deportation. So the judges of the court have authorized an investigation in that regard. And the prosecutor in November of last year said he would be seeking arrest warrants against the commander-in-chief, and several others would be presented later. We also have shared evidence with parties at the International Court of Justice, where the Gambia filed a case alleging that Myanmar had failed to fulfill its obligations under the Convention for the Prevention and Punishment of Genocide. And that case now, the written proceedings closed at the end of last year. We anticipate hearings to start early next year. And I think that's a exciting development. We have shared evidence with both parties, and I believe our evidence will play an important role in that case. We continue to explore sharing evidence with other processes. One of the areas where we have done that, where we're looking at it, is looking at who is supplying the means for the crimes that are being committed, who is profiting. And we have seen some evidence of violations of sanctions laws in certain countries where material is being sent, military material, that's ending up in Myanmar. And we are talking to the judicial authorities, the national authorities in those states who have expressed an interest in our evidence. The elections, the so-called elections, are coming up and anticipated to begin, according to the current de facto authorities, in December. We're very concerned with what's going on with these elections. These are, I use the word elections, but there's elections without a choice, which I think is supposed to be a synonym. of the word election. Recently, the military passed a law providing for punishment up to 10 years for those even protesting the election with the intent to destroy the process. We're very concerned with that. Also concerned because it appears the military, the de facto authorities, have included certain areas in the election that they do not now control, which may indicate an attempt to retake those territories. And what we've been seeing consistently in recent times is when the military goes on offensive, it starts with airstrikes, and these airstrikes, unfortunately, have often targeted areas that are simply civilian. We're also concerned that the elections, that it be clear that targeting election workers or those providing, facilitating the election can be a war crime. And we want to get the word out on that. Whether you agree with the elections or not, under the laws of war, only combatants can be targeted. So we want it to be clear that if people are targeting, opposition forces are targeting individuals simply because they're participating in the election in some way or facilitating the election, these are not combatants, and this would be a violation of the laws of war. We continue to gather evidence. We welcome anyone who has firsthand evidence of war crimes in Myanmar to contact us and share the evidence. We don't care what the ethnicity or religion or nationality is of the victims of the crime or of the perpetrators. We're looking at incidents involving different armed groups in addition to the military. All are obligated under the laws of war to respect international law. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this. I'll open the floor for questions. Yes, please, Michelle, go ahead.
Thank you. Michelle Nichols from Reuters. On behalf of the UN Correspondents Association, thank you for doing the briefing. I just wanted to follow up on your comments on the elections. Are you seeing any sort of signs of targeting of opposition happening already, or any planning for that? And I think there was a rapporteur here the other day who was mentioning, or who was saying, don't send in election monitors because that would, justify what is not apparently an election. So how do you feel about that?
Well, let me say that that's a little bit outside of my mandate, because unlike the Special Rapporteur, Tom Andrews, the Special Rapporteur for Human Rights, it's not my role to give advice to states. We limit ourselves to war crimes. But yes, I am concerned about the elections amounting to war crimes in that, or crimes against humanity, in that we do see signs of individuals, opponents of the election, being targeted. They're being arrested. We also know from our evidence that people who are arrested are often tortured in detention during interrogations. So we're greatly concerned with that. And recently, I think just this week, it was announced by the military that they had passed this new law providing for penalties up to 10 years in prison for those opposing the election. And simply targeting people for an exercise of such fundamental free speech as just opposing an election would be a violation of international law.
Thank you. Islam, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Islam Doğru from Anadolu Agency. Would you let us know what is the latest figure in terms of civilians, how many civilians died in these conflicts, and also internally how many people displaced inside the country, also left the country? Thank you.
Thanks. I really don't have those figures on the tip, because we really do not collect them. We're concentrating on finding the evidence of specific crimes, but certainly there's it's been reported that millions have been internally displaced or displaced over the borders. Just in regards to just the Rohingya, for example, while 750,000 were forced over the border in 2017, in the last couple of years, Bangladesh and UNHCR, I believe, are reporting that about 150,000 Rohingya have fled over the border to Bangladesh because of the currently ongoing violence, where Rohingya have been caught between the fighting between the Arakan army and the Myanmar military, and now increasingly also some Rohingya armed groups involved in that fighting. So and many, probably millions, have also fled Myanmar, now living in Thailand and in other countries in the region, which points out that this crisis in Myanmar is not just a crisis for the people of Myanmar. It has international dimensions. Other states are suffering from the burden of refugees. Other states also suffer from the increasing lawlessness in Myanmar. I think the special envoy for the Secretary General called it the capital of organized crime in the world. Scam centers and drug dealing are coming out of Myanmar, and they're affecting others in the region and even beyond.
Thank you so much. Any other questions in the room? Gabriel, please go ahead.
Thanks, Shireen. Hi, it's Gabriel Zondo from Al Jazeera English. You mentioned this briefly in your remarks, but I just wanted to get a little more detail. The genocide case is the one that was brought forth by the Gambia many years ago, right?
Yes. Well, yes,
2019.
19.
And your anticipation is, what's the timing next year? Do you have any idea?
Well, normally I understand that the court would announce a date of the first hearing about 6 weeks before the hearing, but we're anticipating it early next year.
Okay, thanks. And then one other follow-up is on terms of your evidence collection, are you satisfied that you've been able to collect enough to meet the threshold that you want to achieve, or are there certain challenges, and what is the main challenge?
Thank you. Well, I'm certainly not satisfied that we have enough. I mean, of course, we don't expect we're going to collect all the evidence of all the crimes. There are simply overwhelming number of crimes being committed. So we have to prioritize and pick and choose. And the challenges are many, but they begin with our lack of access to the country. Unfortunately, the authorities are not cooperating with us. We can't go to the crime scenes. We can't access many of the witnesses. And even witnesses who are outside of the country now in some of the neighboring countries, we don't have the consent of those states to cooperate with us and allow us to collect evidence on their territory. And this does make it challenging for us. And the financial challenges, especially for next year, are really great. Despite the expanding number of crimes that are occurring, we have shrinking resources. We have normally been able to raise a couple million, $2 or $3 million a year in XP funding, and some of that has funded very fundamental aspects of our investigation, such as our open source unit that's able to gather evidence from the internet, and there's so much information now available. I've been doing this for 25 years, but this conflict, because it's going on today, there's so much information available on the internet that wasn't the case in other cases that I investigated that involved crimes 10 or even 4 decades ago, 10 years or 4 decades ago. If we don't raise more money, we will lose that unit sometime around April of next year. Similarly, we have 3 experts on sexual violence and crimes against children. That funding has not been secured. If we don't raise money for that, we will have to terminate them. And we anticipate between UN80 and the lack of XP funding, we may lose up to 1/3 of our staff by early next year.
Are there any? Yeah, Michelle.
Just a quick follow-up to that. Is that largely due to the US funding cuts, or is there something else at play?
Well, the XP funding has come from a variety of donors. The United States was one of the donors previously. And the regular budget situation this is separate from the liquidity crisis, so the UN80 reductions are separate, I would say.
Thank you. Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This is Yun Zhaopan from Xinhua News Agency. Do you have any staff member, or how many staff members do you have on the ground in Myanmar to collect the evidence? Thank you.
We don't have anyone on the ground in Myanmar. We're not, never been given permission by the authorities, and this includes pre-coup, to go to the country, unfortunately.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions online, perhaps? Or if no more questions, I'd like to thank Mr. Nicholas Koumjian, head of the Independent Investigative Mechanism for Myanmar. And the next briefer will be here shortly. Thank you so much. Do you, do you, yeah.